Hello once again, and I hope you guys had a good New Year's as we usher in 2022 and finally say goodbye to the mess that was 2021. We all thought that things would get better, but no, it really didn't. And let's hope that 2022 will finally give us some relief that I'm sure many of us need, or at least I do. New Year is also the time for new resolutions, and while for some of you this may mean hitting the gym, if they're open where you're at, for me it's about getting down to completing older projects. And you know what? I think that I've put off this project for long enough. It is about time that I finished this mini ITX build, and I've actually got a couple of parts ready to help me with that. So, first up, I've got a new cooler that is going to replace this existing one, because if you remember from my previous video, the cooler that I installed in here, this PC cooler, is just too tall that I cannot install the side panel on this case, so it has to go. New cooler I got is from Jonsbo. It is the HP400 and it is a really tiny heatsink. It's a 90mm cooler, and even though this guy only cost me about $17 US, I heard that it even outperforms the Noctua NHL9i, which is exactly the reason why I got it. Aside from that, I will also be installing two extra case fans. These will be installed on the top as intakes, and I have chosen the ID Cooling 9215 fans. As you can tell from the name, they are 90mm fans with a 15mm thickness. Now, the last time around, you may also recall that they didn't give me enough of these locking nuts for me to properly secure the top in place. As you can tell, it's wobbly. So I bought a bag full of them so that I can finally get down to securing this thing. Yeah, back then I also couldn't really install the PCI Express riser cable that I bought when I tried. Because when I tried to install it, I found that it was too short for me to mount onto this case. Now, someone in the comment section of my last video actually told me that I actually wasn't using a mini ITX motherboard, but rather a mini DTX motherboard, which explains why the cable was too short. So mini DTX boards are a bit longer than mini ITX motherboards, and in the case of my colorful motherboard right here, it has an additional PCIe Express 1X slot right before the 16X slot, and that extra vertical distance meant that it actually couldn't reach to mount on the bottom here anymore, as it was designed for mini ITX boards. So I bought myself a new longer cable that should actually fit. This is actually a PCI Express 4.0 cable, and I got it just in case in the future I decide to upgrade this rig to something more modern, with a PCI Express 4.0 graphics card. So this should be useful. Oh, this is also not one of those cheap crappy riser cables. Yes, I am very well aware of cheap PCIe riser cables causing connection issues and even fires. NZXT. This riser cable is made by ADT, and they're a pretty well-known brand when it comes to making riser cables. Now, because now I have an extra PCIe Express 1X slot, I thought about what to do with this, and so it would be nice for me to be able to bring this rig around and still get some kind of internet. So it obviously has to be a Wi-Fi card. As you can see though, I can't exactly install any normal Wi-Fi card, as I don't have the space for the brackets and the stick antennas where they usually are. So I had to get a bit creative. I looked around and I found the perfect card for this build, and it is this. This is a PCI Express 1X Wi-Fi card with an Intel AX201 Wi-Fi 6 chip, and more importantly, the antennas that are coming off this are not two sticks down the back, but rather these cables that are attached to patch antennas on the end. So these are the kinds of antennas that you would find on something like your mobile phone, laptops, Nintendo Switch, Xbox, PlayStations, and they're kind of perfect for this case as well, because this case, where I'm planning to install the antennas, the front is made of plastic, so it won't hinder or block any of the Wi-Fi signals or reception. So that's great. The last time around, I also installed a 2.5-inch mechanical hard drive, and it has been painfully slow. So that's gonna get changed out, right? It has to get changed out, and it's getting changed to this Team Group SSD that I bought, and it's only a 256 gigabyte, but that should be plenty for the kinds of things that I'm going to be using it for like, what word processing, surfing, Netflix, and using it to, record some of the audio that I do for these kinds of videos and stuff like that. The final puzzle to this case is actually fixing it up, and I am of course referring to one of these screw holes down the back. If you remember, it was way too big for the thumb screw that was supposed to fit. So what I'm going to try and do is seal up the hole with some epoxy resin. From there, I'm going to try and drill a new hole with the correct diameter, and then try to thread it with the thumb screw. So hopefully with all of that done, it will finally bring this system into completion. And I can't wait, so let's get started. So the Mini ITX build is finally done, and I've got to say that it is looking awesome. Like, yes, I know that in my previous videos I've talked about just, how imperfect this case is. Yes, it's got a lot of flaws, but just look at how small this case is once it's fully built up. I've actually tried fitting the RTX 3060 from the MSI Trident AS that I reviewed before into this PC, and it fits and works perfectly fine in this case with this power supply. So it's a really exciting thing to look forward to in the future for when I actually turn this PC into a gaming capable rig. CPU temperatures have definitely improved as well, and the CPU is actually running pretty damn cool right now at just about 35 Celsius, sometimes dropping to even 34, which is pretty impressive given that the ambient temperature right now is about 30 Celsius? Of course, I can also say that, this isn't really a demanding processor. This is just a Intel Core i5 4440, so, not a very hot processor, but for all intents and purposes, this is really as cool as it gets. I of course mentioned that this Jonsbo cooler should in theory outperform the Noctua NH-L9i based on what I've been reading online, but I don't actually have that cooler to compare it to. But you know what? I'm perfectly happy with the results that I'm getting. So yeah, I absolutely can believe that to be true. The one thing that I didn't really like about this Jonsbo HP400 cooler, however, was getting it installed. The retention mechanism could honestly be a bit better. Like, it really wasn't easy getting this cooler installed because of the way you install this cooler by, you need to kind of press the CPU cooler onto the CPU, of course, while securing it from the back of the motherboard. So I have concerns about getting good thermal paste spreads. Of course, again, back to that, i5 4440, it's probably going to be a non-issue, but you know what? If I or, you decide to get this cooler, I would be a bit more cautious, with running more higher powered chips. So yeah. Aside from that though, the other problem that I was having, and I mean, This is not really a problem as much as it is just a little bit of a complaint perhaps, is that the two fans that I have installed on the top right here are actually running at full speed, and I can't seem to control this due to BIOS limitations on this cheaper colorful motherboard. I tried using some Windows-based software like, you know, fan speed control and whatnot, but I couldn't really control the speed even then, so it's kind of just blaring at 100% all the time. And I mean, on the plus side, while they're definitely audible, I guess they're you know, they're not that loud maybe. And also they really push a ton of air. Like, you know what, I can take a piece of paper and really just show you guys how strong they are. Right, so I've got a bit of an envelope here, and I'm gonna hold this envelope by the lip right here, right? So that's kind of floppy, but watch what happens when I put it over. That is floating right there easily. That's how strong these fans are right now. Yeah, super cool. So yeah, you know what? Great fans given how, you know, thin and small they are, just that the board that I'm using can't really take full advantage of them, which is a bit of a bummer. Aside from that, you know, the Wi-Fi works great now. I've got a Wi-Fi 6E on this tiny little machine, and I've also got Bluetooth, which in fact right now I am using the Keymove KM61 with this PC, which I've reviewed before, which is a great little keyboard, by the way. If you're interested in you know, easily replaceable switches, you can check out my review for it. I'll leave a link for it in the description. And yeah, like in terms of everything else, I'm really happy with this machine. It boots up really fast right now. It's obviously not the perfect case, but damn, it is so tiny, and I really love builds like this. It is just so nice. You know what? It's just so cool seeing a small little machine like this that can, you know, potentially house some pretty badass and serious hardware while being this small and compact, you know? Just makes me feel good. Yeah. So anyway, that's pretty much it for this video. If you liked it, then well, go ahead and like it. Of course, leave any comments that you have down below, and subscribe if you obviously like my content, and stay notified with the you know, bell icon. I don't even know whether people really use that or if it even works. But yeah, if you want to see, you know, more content from me like this, and of course, you know, more standard laptop reviews, hardware reviews, then make sure you follow me on this channel. My name is Yang, the Tech Rodent, and you know what? I just really have a soft spot for this kinds of you know, slim, really tiny machines. And oh, make sure you get make sure you stay for the next video, because I've got a pretty sick laptop in for testing, so make sure you tune into that. I'll see you guys around.